Mr. Carmen, give me, the agenda item that you want to speak to. Tell me a little bit more. I can't,
It's on the RDD in and out.
which item is it on, where is it on the agenda as
It's
far
on
as?
second page,
Intended.
third page.
Okay, I see it now. Okay. That's the item that we had a long time ago, and bring it back up, see what council wants to do with it. Thank you, sir. It is 4 o'clock, and it is time for me to call the regular meeting of Greenwood County Council for Tuesday, July the 7th, 2020 to order. And telling you that in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, the date, the time, the location, and the agenda of this meeting has been posted on the front entrance of the Greenwood County Courthouse and also on the front entrance of the Greenwood County Library. A copy of that agenda has been made available to the media and also has been posted on the county's website. I'm going to ask Councilman Theo Lane to give our invocation, and following the invocation, we will have our pledge of allegiance. Would you please stand with me?
Pray with me, please. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we come to you today with thankful hearts, rejoicing in you for the multitudes of blessings that you constantly provide and that we far too often take for granted. Forgive us, Lord, for that foolishness, and open our eyes to see the majesty of your creations and the gifts that you shower upon us, gifts beyond even our ability to comprehend, for we know that your plans are not always clear to us, but we know that they are perfect plans. We ask your blessings and healings also today, Lord, for our hearts that are heavy, as we observe the divisions that seem to permeate communities throughout our nation. An environment of crisis and conflict in America is calling us as Christians and people of faith to pray for unity of our nation. Your word in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 3 would tell us that we must make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Yet too often, it seems that we see the violence and hatred offered as solutions to frustrations and problems. Knowing that God's word can bring unity, harmony, and oneness in America, we look to you to lay your hands of love upon us. We call upon you today, Lord, to empower us to make every effort to live in unity, call for unity, and continually work actively for unity across our nation. So, Father, we come before you now and cry out for America. We are in desperate need of peace. We humbly ask that you bring that bond of peace that your word demands of us, and lead us as believers to keep the unity of the Spirit. May believers be a model of unity and the voice of love in these troubling days. As we gather here tonight, may all that we do, all that we say, be pleasing in your sight. I pray this in the holy name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me say to everyone in attendance that we do appreciate you being here. Appreciate you taking your time to come and be with us in our meeting and to share with us as we do the people's business. We have 6 members of council present tonight. We have Councilman Robbie Templeton, who is with us in a virtual setting, and as we make action tonight or take action, then we will ask Mr. Templeton to make his vote known as we call for the votes. Council, you have been provided with a copy of the minutes of the June 16th, 2020 regular meeting and the June 25th, 2020 special meeting. If there are no changes to those minutes, then I would ask for a motion and a second to approve both.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Mr. Moats and a second by Ms. Spencer. All in favor? Aye. And that is unanimous. We are pleased tonight to have our interim director of the Greenwood County Library with us. She has recently been appointed to that position as a result of the longtime serving Ms. Taylor in that position. And we wanted you to come tonight. We wanted to meet you. And we want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the ideas and thoughts that you have for the library during this period of time. And welcome tonight. Tracy Hughes.
Hello. I've been with the library now for 21 years, and I have been mentored by Prudence Taylor from day one. I have served as the assistant director for the last 3 years, and she knew for the last couple of years that she was looking toward retirement, so she has been mentoring me and putting things into position so that I could move into the position as an interim director. We've got an excellent staff here at the library. I think all of you know that well. We are going to continue to try to provide the best service that we can, and even through trying times like COVID-19. Right now, we just want to get through the summer, get through the fall, see what COVID-19 is going to bring us as far as regulations, and so we can hopefully get the library back to what we consider normal and have some programs in-house and have some chairs and some seats and everything. So that's what we're trying to do right now.
Tell us a little about your credentials.
I have a master's of library science from USC. I've been a professional librarian for over 30 years. I've been here for the last 21 years. I started actually when we were still a regional system as an extension services manager. And from there I went to working in team services and then as an administrative assistant director.
I noticed when I was reading the paper where they were highlighting Prudence's retirement, there was some data given, and that data referred to the number of what I will call card-carrying patrons of the library in Greenwood County, and they were comparing it to the norm in other locales, and I found that number to be so high, it's unbelievable, but it speaks to what happens in this building here. So can you remember those numbers?
Yes, we have 70% of the citizens in our county have library cards. Those are active library cards that are currently in use. Every year in October, we purge those who have not used their cards for over 3 years. So we feel very confident that 70% is accurate. It's unheard of for a county to have that number of active library cards. And we have seen an awful lot of online business in the last few months, of course, with ebooks and people having to work from home and virtually get their materials. So that number probably has grown even since then.
Well, as you well know, the responsibility of the Greenwood County Council in regard to the library is twofold. One is that we appoint the Board of Trustees for the library, and we also approve a millage to support the funding of the library. And those trustees have the other responsibilities regarding the library. And we just say to you on behalf of these 7 that sit before you, we are very interested in the library. We want it to be successful. We want if that tag interim is removed from your name and you do become the director of the library, we commit to you that we want to work with you, and we invite you to communicate with us at any time of your needs, the programs that you may be wanting to promote, We commit to you that we will work with you in any capacity that we possibly can. Because having a good library system is good for the people of Greenwood County. And call upon us any way that we can help you. I will open it up to any member of council who would like to make a comment or possibly ask a question.
If you don't mind, Mr.
Go
Moore,
right ahead.
I would be interested to know the process that the board is going to go through to ultimately name the new director.
Right now, they are giving me a 6 months to prove myself as much as anything else. I have asked them for that 6 months because I feel like during that 6 months, they will see a lot of what I can do and how I can serve the library in this county. Part of that will take us through the budget process. It'll take us through the fall when the kids go back to school, and it'll take us through hopefully some of this COVID-19, hopefully subsiding a little bit. But they will see everything that they need to see within the first 6 months as to whether or not they want to commit and, further me as a director of the library.
So am I to take it that they're going to monitor you for
Yes.
6 months
Yes,
and not do any search, as it were, for other candidates from outside the library?
Correct.
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council?
Yeah, just one, Chairman. First, congratulations, Tracy, on your interim appointment. What's the plan for your body of work in the 6 months, the work you've been doing?
Right now, it is just to get us through the next few months because right now it's as you can imagine, it's just really crazy. It's changing over. Prudence had been here for so long serving as director. There are a lot of staff, changes that are taking place right now. We are trying to hire a few part-time staff. So there's a lot going on just within the staff body. From that, we hope to get new programs going. Right now, everything is virtually online as far as our programming. And as we go into the fall, we want to see where that's going to lead us because that's a big hole that we're missing right now in touching base with the community is through our programs.
So I'm hearing that basically in the next 6 months, depending on how COVID impact affects, that you're going to basically be doing your old job and Prudence's job?
Yes, and part of Deborah Price's job.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. But I am.
I would just say to you before we close, I think there are some opportunities there that the county and the library can partnership on. I think there are some economies of scale in services, some work, and I would invite you to work with the county manager to see if there's opportunities there. Every dollar that you save in cost to operate the library allows you another dollar, I would assume, to buy a book or periodical or something like that. And I would assume that those dollars are not as great as you would like for them to be. So we are not your enemy, we are your ally, and we want to work with you. So use us and abuse us. We may can say yes sometimes, and we may have to say no, but we'll never know what your needs are over there unless you tell us. And we want the channel of communication to be open as possible. And we won't try to run the library, we will try to be a friend of the library. Okay?
I appreciate
Any
that.
other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Person. Congratulations. And just like to know, will you keep the after-school program on your list?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. I was a young adult librarian before this, so, children are extremely important to me. And I was born and raised here in Greenwood, so I am very committed to this community and the services. So I will.
Well, we're glad for you and hope everything works out. Mr. Manager, I would like for you to see that at some future meeting, we appropriately recognize Ms. Taylor and Ms. Price. I know Debbie's been there since she was a little girl. And you had privileges years in there. It's long years of service to this library, and I would like for us at a future meeting to recognize those two individuals. Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Our next item on our agenda is an update on our litter prevention programs, and we're going to ask Maggie McMahon to come and provide us with that update. Maggie, we're glad to see you.
Good evening. Thank y'all for having me today. I appreciate it. Almost 1 year ago to the day, I was hired to create and execute a plan to abate the litter across Greenwood County. On the slide, you'll see a logo that has been created. The trunk of the tree represents the arms that represent the fact that I can't do this alone. It takes other people, it takes volunteers, it takes a village. The other part you'll notice is the 5 leaves, the 5 larger leaves. Each one represents one of the municipalities of Greenwood County: Troy, Hodges, 96, Ware Shoals, and the city of Greenwood. So far to date, and this is in the 11 months, so my year is not fully complete yet, 25,000 pounds of litter have been removed off of the roadways across Greenwood County. 120 groups have participated in litter pickups. 1,300 total volunteers. I've given over 40 presentations to HOAs, Greenwood County schools, in different classrooms at Landry University, and to service organizations such as Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions Club, etc. 700 tarps have been given out to keep people to cover their load when they're driving back and forth to our convenience centers and landfill. 4 trees have been planted, and 15 cigarette butt receptacles have been placed around the Greenwood community. Specifically, if you look in the uptown area and within the city, you'll see a lot more of the cigarette butt receptacles outside of Powers on Main, Sports Break, Break on the Lake, etc. 73% of the litter that's been picked up has been off of state roads. 16% have been off of county roads. 9% off of federal roads, and 2% out of the city roads. Keep in note that before I began as a litter prevention coordinator, there was no established system for tracking this data. Therefore, the numbers that I will have collected from August 1st of 2019 to August 1st of this year, 2020, will serve as a benchmark in the years going forward. One of the very first things I did is I needed a way to know where the litter was. I can't drive every road in Greenwood County every day, and I was getting a lot of phone calls. So to make me be able to track it a little easier and find hot spots, I worked with George McKinney in our GIS mapping system and created a litter reporting survey website and app. What this app allows you to do, if you're driving down the road and you see some litter, you can pull over, or when you get home, you can log into the app, you can report the litter, and it lets me know where hot spots are. Now, of course, if someone calls, emails, or texts me, I automatically go in and put what they've told me into this as well. And you can see the different hot spots on this map. Obviously, Mathis Road, Cokesbury Road, and back into kind of more toward Callison, there's some litter hot spots. And the purpose of that really is for me to know where to send groups of people. Where are people noticing the litter the most? And the reason I do it this way is because if people are noticing, hey, Mathis Road looked really bad yesterday, now it's clean, maybe those people want to get more involved and volunteer as well. Some issues that I've discovered, and I'm going to go into each one of these more in depth. Untarped loads, litter enforcement by the county and the sheriff's office, and Adopt a Highway. So one of the first things we did is we distributed 700 tarps, and I've already talked about this a little bit, through the convenience centers, the landfill at the Scale House, through code enforcement officer with the county, Larry Faison, and that local Keep Greenwood County Beautiful event. Whenever someone is handed a tarp, they are handed a card. It's a wrap card, and it says tarp your load. It's the law. It states what the South Carolina law says about tarping your load. If you don't have a tarp load or a secured load, whatever, it's an automatic $250 fine. We've really never enforced this in Greenwood County. So to be able to go around and see people actually using their tarps now that I know that I've had something to do with and to pass out, it's been really pleasing that people actually are using them. And my number is on this back card, and every time we get a new box of tarps and we pass them out, I get so many phone calls of people saying, thank you for the tarp, we didn't even know this was a law. So hopefully, by the end of the summer, we'll have probably 400 to 500 more tarps that we'll be able to pass out. I was awarded the litter prevention grant from Palmetto Pride, $5,227 for the year of 2020. Part of this money was used to send me to the KAB, the Keep America Beautiful National Conference, where I met with a lot of other litter prevention coordinators across America. And we went to different seminars and workshops, and we learned what other counties are doing and what other states are doing to abate their litter problem. Part of it is going to cameras, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. And other part of the money is going to signage that's going to say litter surveillance in progress, and you'll see a photo. So that you can see the allocation. That's a picture of what the signs are going to kind of look like. This is a sign that I found at the KAB National Conference in Memphis that Greenville County in South Carolina has actually used in litter hotspots. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's a camera in that location, but they've actually seen success by putting these signs up in spots. So these signs are going to be ordered this week. Cameras, 8 cameras have been ordered. We only have 4 placed right now because the others, we had to get them ordered and get them in, and they're just not in yet. So you can see kind of the general location. I don't want to mention the exact locations because I don't want the public to know where they are. But if you want to know where they are, feel free to email or call me, and I'll be more than happy to tell you. But you can kind of see some of the general location. Hopefully by the end of next week, the other 4 cameras will be put up. And the good thing about these is they run off data. So an enforcement officer or myself, I don't even have to go and pull an SD card out of the camera. I can just pull up with an app on my phone. I can see, okay, if I drop down an area and I say, oh, there's trash, let me just pull my app up and see if I can tell who's throwing that litter out. Or an illegal dump site. Adopt a highway. So adopt a highway is a whole other issue in and of itself. DOT has said that they would like Greenwood County to help manage the Adopt a Highway program. Some other counties that do this are listed: Aiken, Richland, Charleston, Lexington, Cherokee, Beaufort, Florence. We did have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, but due to some unforeseen things with DOT, that meeting has been pushed back to the 15th. So I had already submitted my PowerPoint slide when we found that out, so I apologize for the confusion. But hopefully in that meeting, we're going to set the guidelines and the examples of what DOT would like me to help with. And at the end of my presentation, you're going to see some goals that I do have to help manage Adopt a Highway and get them a little bit better under control. Enforcement. Last year, only 3 litter tickets, so in 2019, only 3 litter tickets were written in Greenwood County. 0 have been written this year. 2 have been written in the city. But in the county level, 0 have been written. Money, I know it's hard to come by. There is a grant for the Litter Task Force grant through Palmetto Pride. It'll provide funding for 2 years if requested for a part-time litter enforcement officer. The good thing about this is that officer has to be litter, nothing else. They can't be divided their time between animal control, code enforcement. It has to be litter. So that would be one dedicated person who would only go after people littering, for people with uncharted loads, and only county governments and sheriff's offices can apply. So this is something we're looking at doing. It's a work in progress. We have all the data ready. It's just a matter of putting it together. And with talking, we want the person to be a sheriff's deputy because they'll be able to carry a gun and they'll have a badge and therefore and so on. So we're working with the sheriff's office to hopefully apply for this November-ish.
Can I just stop you right there?
Yes, sir.
If my memory serves me right,
And it does.
we have funded a full-time litter officer to the sheriff's department.
Have you really?
Yes, ma'am.
You just made my day.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And I don't know if it's the present sheriff or the one prior to that, but I think they decided that they needed more help in the area of, help me out with the dog. Animal control. And I think they have been relegated to animal control as opposed, and I know they do some litter
Right.
with some, people on the side of the road, but as far as full-time officer, we did fund that several years ago, and it was 100%, and we need to look at that and maybe talk to the sheriff and see if we can get that person back to 100%. Am I remembering right? Mr. Manager?
I believe you are.
Okay.
Y'all have made my day.
Well, I just wanted you to know that, and I'm not here to cast a dim light on the
Right.
sheriff's department. I'm just saying, we made a deliberate decision at that time to have a litter officer, and we added the additional monies to the budget at that time to fund that position.
Thank y'all, I appreciate that a lot. So COVID-19, it has been a hassle, but you know, it kind of brought aspects of my job to a grinding halt because I wasn't able to do litter pickups like I was doing them before. You know, there had to be special precautions put into place. People didn't want to get out and pick up litter. So it gave me some time to work on some other things, such as illegal dumping, the uncharged loads, and figuring out a better plan for what we're going to do for enforcement. This is a site on Buck Level Road. I ride by it numerous times a week. It was recently cleaned up thanks to Code Enforcement Officer Larry Faison and a Lander SO Club member and Lander volunteer Zach Woods. And what happens is on Tuesday and Wednesday when the convenience centers are closed, people go and dump here. And some of the trash that they pulled out of there probably, I mean, it was in the bushes and the weeds, back in there and all that styrofoam. It was just a ton of wet, soaked up cardboard. So, you know, illegal dumping is an issue. And unfortunately, we don't have a good system in place of what do we do when this happens, you know. You have to have that 3-piece of evidence rule. That's what our magistrate cases require for you to convict someone of littering. So when an officer does have the chance to go through a bag, if they don't have 3 pieces of evidence, we can't convict that person of littering, you know, or illegal dumping. If someone's just dumping a sofa off. So there are going to be cameras and hot spots. I'm not saying there's a camera on Buck Level Road. There are going to be cameras in spots like this so we can see who's doing it. Outside of apartment complexes, this happens all the time. And unfortunately, based on the ordinances that we have, it falls on the county to go and pick that stuff up. After COVID-19, so I worked with, again, George McKinney on doing this. This is just a safety precaution sheet that is passed out so, you know, we make sure that people are maintaining their distance. And instead of taking the safety vest back, the volunteers now take their safety vest with them and they're encouraged to bring it back to the next litter pickup. The pickup sticks are brought back, quarantined for 3 days, and then disinfected with a commercial grade disinfectant spray. Volunteers cannot stand within 6 feet of each other unless, of course, you're in a household, it's a small child, that sort of thing. And instead of the rubber tip gloves, we're actually switched to using disposable gloves because they're less expensive and I don't feel wasteful using them. And then on the back of the sheet, you can see how to properly remove your gloves. So, Good Times Brewing in the Millhouse, they approached me and they want to do a monthly cleanup in different areas across the county. So we started doing this June 20th on Grace Street Park, 38 bags of trash, 2 trailer loads full of just junk, bulk items, sofas, refrigerators, tires, 61 volunteers. And that was really refreshing to me because I was worried that people weren't going to come out with COVID and being concerned. But just to see the sheer amount of people that came out with their families, with their friends, and who obeyed the social distancing rules and the procedures that I had put in place was amazing to me. And so I'm really excited for the next one, July 18th. And that's actually going to be on the Heritage Trail that starts right over here. And hopefully, you know, we'll have 61 plus 60 more that show up. So I'm really excited about that. My goal is to get more groups of people to come back out and resume litter pickups, but again, with COVID, it's been kind of difficult to get people to want to commit. So I'm really starting to push that now. Like, hey, come on, like your group can do it, your organization can do it. Boy Scouts, different restaurants, different businesses, you know, now's the time to get people excited about something, and there's no better way to pick up litter. Because it is an activity you can do while you're socially distancing.
Maggie,
Yes.
say again, I want to make sure I didn't misunderstand you. That pickup was in Grace Street Park.
Mm-hmm.
2 trailer loads of bulk items. What
Right.
kind of items you say it was?
Tires, refrigerators,
In Grace Street Park?
in that back part, like where the bike trail is. Yeah.
Okay.
So far to date, I have spent $5,540 out of the operating budget I was given. This is actually gonna go up a little bit because of the cameras with the data. That's gonna have a monthly cost, but that's already been set up. This goes for items like office rent, the office phone in my office. It pays for my airfare to go to the Keep America Beautiful conference. When people do a litter pickup, I have storage containers that I put the pickup sticks, the vests, and everything in. So when they come to pick up the supplies, it's a lot easier for them to manage instead of just having stuff thrown everywhere. So it went to fund items like that. Print brochures, to do the tarps, to do the wrap cards for the tarps. So here's some of my goals for the upcoming year. Obviously, we haven't written any tickets, so I'm going to start my goal at 2 a week. But knowing now that we're going to have an officer, we can probably up that goal a little bit. So, we went from 0 a year, so we're going to do 2 a week, so that'll be 110. But knowing there's going to be somewhere we can up that a little bit. Adopt a highway. It needs an updated contact list. The list is older, so we do have a plan for that. I want to have 40 new Adopt a Highway contracts signed in the next year. Over 45 presentations will be given, and I want to increase litter pickups by 10% each year. And that's by pounds and by the amount of litter pickups that are done. Any questions?
Let me just say, this has been good. Sounds like you've got things moving in the right direction. I just want to say, we are pleased to have Angela aboard with us tonight. Angela is now, we can call her the former president or CEO of the Greater Greenwood Chamber of Commerce. And she has partnered, when she was at the chamber, she partnered with us, allowed you to be located in her offices there, and has worked with you even before you came aboard to keep this litter effort going in Greenwood County. And Angela, we want to say thank you very much for all that you have done. And we appreciate it very much. I'll ask council if they have questions or comments, but I would just say, keep it up, and if you can get the sheriff to put that person at 100%, you go right ahead. You have our commission to talk to the sheriff and get that person back at 100%, but we do appreciate what you've done, Mr. Moses.
Mayor, I want to thank you for what you're doing in Greenwood County. It makes a huge difference. Glad you're there. Just curious, what is the amount of fine for a person who receives a ticket for littering?
So it varies. So about a year and a half ago, the South Carolina state law was changed. So if you're caught littering anywhere from 0 to 25 pounds, you can be fined anywhere from $25 to $100, and you are supposed to be sentenced at court at least 5 hours of mandated community service to pick up litter. Do we follow that? Not all the time. If it's anywhere from 25 to I think 100 pounds, then the fine goes up based on the amount of pounds that the litter or the item that you're dumping is. And I can't remember them right off the top of my head, but it is, if we could get it to a point where we could get people to really mandate that litter pickup part, if you're caught littering, you have to do the pickup, then I think that would really change people's perception too. But again, it also comes back to enforcement. We have 0 litter tickets. So, I think once we start writing more tickets and getting that mandated where they have to do the litter pickup, it's going to change the perception a lot.
Hopefully. Ms. Giles?
Randy, you talk about the hot spots. How are those hot spots determined?
So it's based on what people are telling me and what I'm noticing driving down the road. So like I mentioned, I can't be on every road every day. So by people going into the link that's on our website and reporting where the litter is. Now some places I just know. I know Mathis where is a hot spot. I mean, people call me about it every week. But the more people are telling me about a spot, I know I need to clean that spot up faster because we want people to be excited about something.
Well, I have one that
Okay.
needs to be on your list.
Okay, I'll write it down.
Highway 34. And that's all the way down to
To
the old
96.
furniture store.
I will add it.
Do you think most of the litter is from untarred vehicles?
Yeah, I would, from observation and research that I've done, I would say at least 60% of it is probably coming from untarred vehicles. And the reason I'm saying that is if you look down any road that leads to our convenience centers or to our landfill, that's where you're seeing the most trash. So, you know, I've done research. What are other states doing? What are other counties doing? And states and counties that are enforcing that tarp load see a great reduction in litter on the side of their roads.
I was just thinking back to when we were on Emerald Road picking up trash. You can't see a whole lot when you're driving down, but by the time we got on down the hill, there was a lot of trash
Right.
on that road, and it just made me think, because you have a lot of times people walking back and forth also, and they're throwing trash. I don't know if you want to call it a hot spot, but it's a busy spot.
Right. And I mean, I'm going to use Bay Root Road over there between Center Street and Calhoun. You know, that road is a perfect example of that. There's so much foot traffic along that road. You don't see the trash when you're driving down it, but you start looking in the bushes and the weeds, or right after they go and cut that, it's trashed.
The times that I've picked up litter, it seems that around stop signs, that's when it's tossed. When you go down on Highway 34 at Foundry Road, where it comes back into, maybe it's not Foundry Road, but when it comes back into 34,
Yeah.
we picked that up one time, and just right around that stop sign on both sides. It's very obvious that people find that a convenient time to rid themselves of trash.
And Lander, I don't know if you've ever heard this data, but Lander Esso Club has done a study on parts of Highway 34, figuring out the different types of litter. And so Zach Woods, he's here tonight, he has done an excellent job kind of teaming that up and getting that data that's been shared with the South Carolina Forestry Commission and Palmetto Pride along with myself. And seeing the different items, you know, it's interesting to see what people are throwing out going out of town and what people are throwing out coming into town. So he has some really good data that I'm sure if you ever want him to share with you, he'd be more than willing to share with you.
Any other questions by council?
Just a comment, Chairman, please. Maggie, I don't have any questions except about just 3 levels of evidence. I'll talk to the county attorney about that later. But I think you're doing a great job. And I want to thank you for bringing what I perceive to be a real strategic approach to the delivery of your services. I think that you've created some processes and plans that'll work well for us. The only thing I would encourage you to do is more frequently pick the phone up, call Ms. McIntyre, and come talk to us about what's going on. Because so many times you've got great programs and initiatives that we don't necessarily know about. But thank you for the great job you're doing.
I will say one more thing. A couple of weekends ago, Keep Greenwood County Beautiful and I partnered to do a shred day out at the Lowe's parking lot. Mr. Lane came and helped out. We had over 3 shred of the big shred-away trucks filled with unwanted documents that were shredded. And we had over 200 pounds of cardboard that was recycled. And I believe, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I believe it was right around 2,000 something pounds of e-waste that was brought to be recycled.
1,160 pounds of e-waste,
Thank you.
1,360 pounds of total stuff.
Right.
You stole my district report, by the way.
No, I'm sorry. But thank y'all for letting me come tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and I think the cameras are going to help you with working with the sheriff's department. Their hands are tied just as much as anybody else's. I mean, you know, people call all the time and say, why don't you do something, or why don't you write tickets? They can't do anything unless you. So I think using these cameras is going to help you and going to help them too. And I'm glad to see that. We've got enough out there that we need to try to stop as much as possible. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job,
Thank y'all.
Madam Clerk, please. Has anybody submitted any written comments that they were not read into the record?
No, sir.
None whatsoever. Then I would call on Mr. Mike Kearns to come forward. He has requested to make some public comments to the council, and it is in regard to an item at the last of the agenda which says discussion regarding ordinance 2019-02, which amends the Greenwood County zoning ordinance being ordinance 13-86 as it pertains to section 3, section 6-3-29 and section 6-3-47. Mr. Colonel, welcome.
Thank you. I didn't know I'd be first or not, and I was hoping that y'all make a decision or something where I wouldn't have to make a
You've
comment.
never been first. This is it.
This is
You're
it.
first.
This is it right here. It says somewhere that the first will be last, and the last will be first. But,
And that's your first.
the reason I'm here is I'm having to defend my own property, my own inheritance, my own job, my own livelihood by what y'all putting in this new proposed RDD. I'd like to ask each one of y'all been working on it since February of 19. Have y'all talked to anyone of the constituents and told them what all the RDD is involved in? All the places that's not recommended that are operational now and have been since 1990 or 1992. See, I've been before some of y'all many times, and some of you none of the times. But I've always tried to defend what I like to do. I like to fool with cars. I buy them and sell them, fix them up, repair them. But because I have 2 or more cars without a current tag and restoration, I'm considered a junkyard. That's by y'all's ordinance as it is in RDD. I've been bullied and harassed to meet odd and end things. I've been told that I can't do things. I've been told that I can do things. But in this proposal you got, it's got a lot of things that are enacted, that are presently in, but they're not recommended. And I'm sure that most of the people in here are not affected by RDD. I think 1 or 2 of you are, and whatever. But I was at a public meeting in 2003, and it was discussing about passing new ordinances. It says if you have any kind of repair business that comes in after this ordinance is enacted, we'll describe the swing standards with the applicant when they come. But if you currently have a business like that, there's no retroactive standards that go into effect. In 2001, some administrative law judge wrote about law and economics. He says if you have something in your yard that disturbs your neighbors, they can ask county council, the government, to write an issue about it, to do it. But even though, and the purpose of it was 2 pink flamingos, I'm sure some of y'all got pink flowers, yellow flowers, even got Bradford pear trees in your yard. They say that's the worst thing for allergies you can have, but everybody's got them. But if you pass an ordinance that you can't have Bradford pears, that's only from hereafter. The ones that's presently got them can be it because the ordinance is not retroactive. I can tell you that y'all been trying to implement on me an ordinance of 2004 about 6/3/117. Do each one of y'all know what that is? Anyone? It's the junkyard ordinance. It's standards that you put forward in the new RDD that you have to meet to do it. Car sales, farming, repair shops, mechanic shops. I can't sell an automobile sitting behind a 6-foot wooden stockade fence. None of y'all would stop and look at it. But you go to other places that have 2 or more unregistered, unlicensed cars and buy used vehicles and new vehicles. I think y'all putting forward 2 different principles and standards of implementing the zoning ordinance as it is. When I come to Greenwood every day, I pass 20 different places that have 2 or more cars, or more than 1 car without a current tag and registration. Y'all not enforcing that, except on me. There's no one else between the city limits right here. When you go out the red light right here, there's 3 or 4 places sitting right there with vehicles that have no tags on them. And what y'all fixing to pass with this new RDD has allowed me and others supposedly to be non-conforming uses, which in my understanding are exempt of the new regulations. That's what it was said in 2001 and 2003. But y'all got a list of it. I don't think all the people in the audience do. But things that are permitted in odd and end things. Corporate headquarters, not recommended. Financial stockbrokers, not recommended. Laboratory research, not recommended. Office building, not recommended. Automotive, truck, motorcycle, boat sales, not recommended. But yet in the waterfront district y'all just passed, boat sales, car sales, tractor sales, motorcycles, whatever's allowed. Bookstores, not recommended. There's over 120 places that are not recommended. Opticians, parking garage, parking lots, gas stations with or without gas, country's convenience stores. They're allowed now, but they're not going to be allowed under this new ordinance that you passed. And I think it's just totally wrong. You don't trust us to make use of our own land, our own livelihood, our own enjoyment. You like to sit out in the porch under the screen and enjoy it. Y'all like to go places. You enjoy real estate, fooling with it. You enjoy fooling with the Crime Stoppers. But we're not telling you that you can't, but y'all telling me and other property owners that we can't. And I understand that we are to be grandfathered. That's just mere words. Because I was grandfathered. In 1986, there was no zoning where I'm at. In 1990, they passed the first RDD. In 1992, county brought charges against me for having a junkyard without a fence. It was declared that I had a substantial fence, that I was in compliance. For all these years, it's been run through till recently. And now all at once I find out I've never been non-conforming. I can't be both. Either I am or I ain't. But I have no friends in the courthouse, and I don't think I have any on county council. I've thought I was going to get to talk to some individually before this come back up. But because of the virus and everything else going on, I didn't. I just noticed that Sunday it's going to be back on the agenda. But are you aware of what the 63117 says? Are you aware of the 63145? The ad that you put in the paper. I got in here somewhere, but it just says y'all will discuss 6329 and 6347. What is that? Do y'all know? Y'all got it in a piece of paper, but y'all giving time for y'all to understand it, but you're not giving time for the people in RDD, this property owners, to understand it. And it's a life-changing ruling. It affects anything and everything that you do. If I want to sell my place now, I can't because it's supposed to be non-conforming. But take the places on South Greenwood, the car sales, the theater, and stuff down that way, the auto sales. They become non-conforming. They can't enlarge. They can't add to it. You can't get a permit. They denied me permits at the bottom floor of the courthouse for ages. It sent me a letter that I was in violation. Go down. Oh, you can't do that. You're not conforming. And then all at once, I'm conforming. I don't understand that. But I wish y'all would postpone it till the public knows what's going on. Not just me. If I hadn't known what 6347 was, I'd have never been involved. But the first time I come down here was in March or April of 19. And y'all done had the public hearings, then had the planning commission public hearings, and no comment from nobody. But nobody knew it. The ones I'm talking to said, what you mean? What you talking about? You know? Why don't you have a public hearing for the public that runs these businesses? Have you put any signs out saying that that's going to be rezoned? Have you put out any letters to the people that's going to be rezoned? That's a requirement, isn't it? For a planning commission to do. All these years I've been fed and been relying on what I've been told. Zoning ordinance are not retroactive. That anything existing legally can stay. And yet it still don't appear that way to me. I might be the honest one, and I feel like sometimes I am the honest one that the county is bringing charges against because I'm on the underside of new parks, the county park and the new park. But recently y'all passed a thing about parking areas. And it was asked if existing business would be grandfathered in regard to the new language. They explained that existing businesses would be allowed to continue as they are today, but just in case any change in use would require it to comply with new language.
Mr. Colonel, I'm gonna ask you.
One more comment. It was cited that changes in the proposed RD district primarily mentioned the revised list of uses as allowed in the new language. They explained the proposed list of uses would state which uses are allowed in the new RD, rather than leaving the use open-ended. Pointed out that those uses proposed for removal from the current list of RDD, such as industrial uses and high-density uses, such as apartment complexes. What does that mean? The list to be removed. I wish y'all postpone it, put it off, have some public hearings, other than just on Tuesday night where the public would know about what's going on. And I sat down with this, the lady talking about litter control. Name me one place in the county where anybody coming in that buys goods, drinks, hamburgers or whatnot can dispose of their trash. There's nowhere. If you buy it in Lawrence County or Edgefield or McCormick, you come into Greenwood, you can't dispose of it at none of the recycling places. You can't put it out in none of the retail places, drop boxes and whatever. So used to Greenwood has some drop boxes here and there around. But I think that'd be a good suggestion for the litter. And I would, again, ask and plead y'all to postpone this enactment of the RDD. Thank you.
Before you leave, I want to make two comments, and I'm looking for
Okay.
a response, but I'm going to make two comments. One is, it is a fact, I can't speak for these other six, but it is a fact that you have never called me and asked me to meet with you, have you?
No, sir, but I thought about it.
Just answer my
I was
question.
supposed to be with
Okay,
the other
okay,
council.
I know. So I'm saying to you, if you'd have called me, I'd be glad to meet with you. And I offer to you after this meeting, as soon as we possibly can, you call Ms. McIntyre and I'll sit down with you and listen to you as long as you won't talk to me and show me anything you want to. The second thing I want to say is the very fact that this came up so long ago and was tabled by this council speaks loudly to the fact that we knew it was a severe change.
Right.
And we did not move on it because we wanted to know as much about it as we possibly could. We wanted to know who it was going to impact, how it was going to impact. We wanted to know all of the details. And so we said to the staff, no, we don't want to act on it now. We want more information. We have gone back to them a couple of times and asked for some information. They have provided that to us. And the reason it's on the agenda tonight is basically to say to council, this matter is still pending, it's still on the table. Do we need to set up the proper process by which it can come before us for a vote, or do we need further study? That's all it is on the agenda tonight. We're not gonna vote on it tonight. Until we bring it off of the table, it's still on the table. So I assure you, it won't be passed tonight. That's not our intention. And we never intend to pass anything without giving the public as much opportunity. We hear you loudly. We understand your situation, and we'll do everything we can to respond to your concerns. So
I'd like to be included in any meeting that y'all have, and perhaps others, you know?
public meetings are public meetings, so we make that offer to you. Anyone else on council want to say anything before Mr. Colonel sits down?
Well, just Mike, when those meetings could take place, I think there's some conversation that would be beneficial. You're in my district. I agree with everything the chairman just said. We were seeking more information, not less. I'm happy to talk with you on this issue anytime. I know the county manager is. So let's talk about it.
Okay.
You know, talking about it won't hurt anything.
Can I talk to Mr. McIntyre now?
No.
Thank
You pushing it now. You'll sit there until after the meeting, we'll let you talk to her, okay?
Okay.
Our next item of business is a number of public hearings. I will announce the public hearings and then I will provide you an opportunity to come forward and to make your comments on these matters.
Chairman.
Before council.
Can I interrupt you 1 minute?
Yes.
We were probably negligent in not acknowledging the board members that were here tonight for Keep Greenwood County Beautiful.
We probably were. I will let Maggie introduce them if you would like.
I apologize. I should have said that earlier.
So, our yellow board has been our previous chair, but as we know that she is leaving, so Donna Seidler, who is our great director of public works, is gonna step up and be the chair for the time being until someone else will take it over. We had Mr. Walt Willard, who was sitting right here, he just left. I serve as secretary, and then I'm missing. And then Craig Stuckey, who's no longer a board member, but he is a critical part in the role that Keep Greenwood County Beautiful plays in Greenwood County.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here.
Appreciate the hard work. First, public hearing is ordinance 2020-15, which authorizes the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and special source revenue credit agreement between Greenwood County and U.S. Biomass to provide for a payment of a fee in lieu of taxes with respect to certain projects, authorizing the inclusion of certain project sites in a multi-county business park, authorizing special source revenue credits and other matters. This is up for third reading tonight. You doing the sign language to interpret.
Before you take the vote, we have something we need to address.
Okay, let me get to hear it. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? This is an ordinance that deals with an old meal facility off of Highway 34 down below 96. Anyone like to make a comment for or against? If not, I'll close that public hearing, and before I ask council for action, I'll ask the city manager to provide us or the county attorney.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. There's not an amendment to the ordinance itself, but there will be one minor change in the agreement that did not make it into your packet for tonight. In the language, it says 31 full-time equivalent jobs. We'll be taking the word equivalent out just to say 31 full-time jobs. So there won't be any confusion as to whether it's, 2 part-time equal to full-time. That's the change that will be made to the actual fee agreement. As I said, I don't think you need to amend the ordinance because this is an attachment, not the ordinance itself. So I just wanted to make sure y'all knew that.
Council, you have heard the explanation by the county attorney. What is your pleasure?
Yeah, so move that we accept it with that amount of change.
Ms. Giles, give us a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allison. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. And Mr. Templeton votes, so that is a unanimous approval of that ordinance. Our next is a boundary line agreement. Consideration of a proposed boundary line agreement between Greenwood County and Ron Cooley for the property described as all that certain piece, parcel, or lot of land together with improvements thereon, situate, lying, and being in the county of Lawrence, state of South Carolina, as shown on plat of survey by R. Daniel Proctor dated May 8, 2020, shown as lots 37 to 38 located on Ridgewood Drive in the Ridgewood Harbor subdivision. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this boundary line agreement? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this boundary line agreement? I'm going to ask the county engineer to come forward at this time and provide any information to council that he would like before we take a vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a quick review of boundary line agreements, what they are. I'll go through it quickly. I know council's seen most of this before. I have about 6 or 7 slides and get to this particular agreement that we're asking you to take action on today. First of all, boundary line agreements, the current policy became effective in 2013 and revised in 2014. Just a little history that in the late 30s, when Greenwood County purchased the property that is currently Lake Greenwood, the land was purchased up to the 440 contour. The 440 contour wasn't actually a surveyed line. There was some surveying done, but not by the current standards of today. So over time, that original line that delineated between county property and private property was kind of lost to history. So boundary in most areas, again, was not surveyed by today's standards, and then of course is not accurate by today's standards whenever a shoreline is washed away or deposited in any manner along the shoreline. We also, when we consider boundary line agreements, we need to consider the FERC and what was established as the FERC boundary in 2002. And we're going to look at the FERC boundary in relation to this particular property. But that boundary in 2002 was drawn very broadly on a very large scale map that doesn't really match up to the current accuracy we have in GIS today. We'll look at that in respect to this property as well. But we cannot change that FERC boundary or give away property that's within that FERC boundary without FERC approval. So it's something we need to be wary of when we do these boundary line agreements. We'll talk to that as well. Engineering department is not opposing the one boundary line agreement that's up for discussion tonight. And then the BI, it meets the current policy that we have, or it follows a previous precedent set by council. In this case, it's going to follow a previous precedent set by council when we deal with these boundary line agreements for this particular case. Just want to bring council attention just one particular item within the current policy, and that the policy shall not apply to property formed or created by fill, seawall construction, or other manipulation of the 440 contour after the date of the 2002 aerial photograph. So we'll look at the 2002 aerial photographs as well, and again, that has to do with the FERC boundary. We'll address that just briefly. The boundary line agreement for tonight, the property owner is Mr. Ron Cooley. The parcel number is actually a Lawrence County parcel in the Ridgewood Harbor subdivision. It's a combination of lot 37 and 38. And the actual acreage in question as part of the survey presented by Mr. Dan Proctor is a little less than 1/10 of an acre. So 0.09 acres or 9/100ths of an acre that we're talking about. We're not talking about a whole lot of land here, although we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics. There is the property there as it sits today on our current GIS outlined in red. Looks like actually like a music note, if you would. It has some frontage on the Ridgewood Drive up there, and then has a narrow section down to a peninsula that sticks out into the lake itself. No current structure on that property, just an empty lot, has been that way for many years. Mentioned the 2002 aerial imagery and that these boundary line agreements were not intended to add property to a private person for a shoreline that's been manipulated since 2002. I will point out in this picture that at the very low part of the note right there, there is some seawall construction what looks like seawall construction activity going on in this picture from 2002. We do believe that the seawall was installed prior to 2002, and so therefore that part of that exemption doesn't necessarily apply in this case. Although that picture there is a little confusing, it does look like they were working on the seawall when this particular picture was taken in 2002. We're going to go back to today's imagery as the backdrop, but what we've added in this next slide is, in orange, is the FERC boundary. Now, in this particular case, the FERC boundary is a little bit confusing. The large thick line that we have running from the top to the bottom, right here from the top to the bottom. That large thick line actually represents the 1938, 1939 property line that Greenwood County brought up to. So everything to the left of that line, we believe in 1938, 39, late 30s, was purchased by Greenwood County. And everything to the right of that line remained private property. However, and as early as I think 65 was the earliest plat we came across, you would notice that peninsula lies to the left of that line, which would indicate that it was Greenwood County property originally. Now, the deed in the late 30s mentioned didn't mention any meets or bounds, didn't have any survey directions or anything like that. There was a map provided with it that is very general, but the deed said 2 to 440 contour. We do believe as early as the 60s that peninsula out there that's to the left of the line that was originally the property line between the two entities started showing as private property. Again, I think 65 was the earliest plat we saw. So not unusual land around the lake that was above the 440 contour to be shown as private property, after the time that the lake was filled. So, and what we have here, what was actually sent to FERC in 2002 was a combination of both lines. What we said FERC was the FERC boundary included that peninsula as being private property and outside of the FERC boundary. So as part of this boundary line agreement, we are, in my opinion, not giving away any land within the FERC boundary if this boundary line agreement is approved. All right, that's one of the major concerns. So originally the peninsula was believed to be Greenwood County property. We don't have any, other than the deed that says the 440 contour, we don't have any survey that says that. As early as the 60s, we believe it was counted as private property, and here today it's been treated as private property ever since that time.
Rob, let me stop you a minute, because you've said that several times. Greenwood County sold that peninsula?
No,
Well, then how did it become private property?
we don't have it.
And the reason I bring this up, I'm very familiar with that property.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, I know the residents on both sides of that property. I didn't know, again, I go back to my question, I don't know how it goes from being county property to private property without a sale by Greenwood County. But if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if this has any bearing on anything, but in the upper portion of that diagram, the bottom of the music note as you talk about it, that portion on that far end was filled in some years ago. Yeah, right up there. There was no land there. I don't know how long that goes back. I don't know if that makes any difference if it doesn't, but
If you actually look at the aerial photographs as early as the 30s, before the lake was filled in, it does appear that was above the 440 contour when the lake was filled in originally from the start. Now, how much above it? Was there some fill added? Was it extended a little bit? It does appear that there was a peninsula there in the 30s when the lake was filled. So again, a lot of these areas, and we have it, and I spoke to the previous engineer about this at great length. There are areas around the lake where we bought to the 440. That's what the deed says. They filled the lake up to the 440, and there's land out there that's beyond what we think we bought. And over time, it was, I don't want to say became private land, but it was land like this that was kind of in no man's land. We're not exactly sure, was that purchased by Greenwood County? Was it not purchased by Greenwood County? There's not a definitive line there because we were bought to an elevation, not to a surveyed line. If you look at the old survey map, that you have a very broad squiggly line that runs up through there. It doesn't show that the peninsula is in there, but it doesn't necessarily show that it's not in there either. We believe that line right there was the original property line. At some point, and again, as early as the 60s, this all was included as private property. So Was that line originally right there? Was it over this way a little bit more? The survey just isn't accurate enough from the 30s to determine whether that peninsula is in and out. I mean, I got an idea, but as early as the 60s, it's been counted as private land.
And the people who held deed to that property has paid tax to a government on that property as private land.
Since
So
as early as
some
yes.
government staff member or official in his capacity or her capacity deemed that to be private land, and that presents us with why we are issuing these boundary line agreements to try to clarify whether the surveys or the documents or whatever, Lawrence County government and Greenwood County government were charging these people taxes on that property. And we assumed it was their property, and now, some years later, somebody said, no, it's not, and this is why we now have this process in place, just to clarify that. So we're just trying to do right by the people and establish a once-for-all boundary and try to eliminate some of the confusion. And I think it's one of the best things we've done in years. It's not easy on you. It's not easy on the staff. It's not easy on a lot of people. But the people deserve to know where that line is and where their property is, and to know what they're actually paying tax on and have been paying tax on.
Yes, it's been treated as private property for all intents and purposes since the 60s.
How long was Mr. Cooley on it? Any idea?
It's been quite some time. Mr. Cooley here tonight. 20, 30 years. I mean, it's been there for a while. I believe he's owned that lot since Bridger Harbor was divided out or soon after. It's been there a while. So that's kind of the overall big picture. Let's get to the specifics of this particular boundary line agreement. Here's the actual plat. The way that property has been drawn since, again, the 60s, you have a survey that was done that essentially lines out around this fence what the current 440 is around there. The difference between that survey and a previous survey that had some straighter lines and stuff is less than 1/10 of an acre. It's just establishing that the boundary that is there today, the 440, which is behind the current seawall, would be private property, and anything in front of it below the 440 contour would be Greenwood County property. So it firmly establishes a surveyed line between the two parties. Again, we don't, notwithstanding the history of it, the engineering department doesn't oppose this boundary line agreement in any form or fashion. It only makes sense to make right what's been treated like that for 50, 60, 70 years.
Ron, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Am I to understand everything left of that dark line, that's the 440?
Everything-
Greenwood County.
Everything to the left of that is Greenwood County. And we can go back, that's a clearer picture, that's approximately the same line. Anything in water is Greenwood County property.
My question is, if the Greenwood County, what happens to those docks? I think there's one there and there's one on the bottom of that.
There's a dock right here. The dock is there by encroachment, just like any other dock on Lake Greenwood. They have a permit to have that dock out there with lake management. This right down here is a boat ramp. Again, it's there under encroachment. It's a encroachment on the Greenwood County property that they have a permit for. And they have to follow certain rules and regulations as to have that there on Greenwood County property.
Any other questions by council? And you're recommending approval of this boundary line agreement?
We're not opposing it. Yes, we're recommending it.
Okay, I was going to say you didn't answer my question.
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions by council? Comment, do we all understand it? All right, now I'll ask council, what is your decision?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Mr. Allison to approve this boundary line agreement, second by Ms. Childs. Questions or comments? Are you ready to vote? All in favor of the motion? Aye. and Mr. Templeton votes, so it's a 7-0 vote to approve the boundary line agreement. Thank you very much. Thank you. That ends our public hearings. Our next item of business is third reading on an ordinance, which is, will be third and final reading, ordinance 2020-14, which amends the Greenwood County zoning ordinance so that one parcel of land, 31.57 acres owned by Mill Properties of Greenwood LLC, located at 4802 96 Highway in Greenwood, is changed from AG1 to I1 Light Industrial. This is third and final reading. What is your pleasure? Motion by Ms. Childs,
Second.
second by Mr. Allison. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And that is unanimous.
Library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please make sure all materials have been checked out at the circulation desk. And don't forget to pay for any copies.
Second reading on an ordinance 2020-01, which authorizes the execution and delivery of amended and restated special source revenue credit agreement by and between Greenwood County and Coal Mountain Greenwood SC LLC to clarify the terms of the existing agreement and extend the existing agreement up to an additional 10 years. The execution and delivery of an amended intergovernmental agreement with the city of Greenwood. Madam Attorney, what can you provide so that the public will know what we're doing?
Mr. Chairman, this is to resolve an ambiguity in our existing agreement with, it's the Coles property, Coles PetSmart. There are two parcels. The agreement was ambiguous as to whether both parcels were intended to be in the agreement. This is clarifying that ambiguity that they do, both parcels are going to be in the agreement. It's also resolving, there were some unclaimed SSRCs from 2016, 17, and 18, and it's resolving the repayment of those special source credits. The city has already taken first reading because it's in the city. There's also an intergovernmental agreement. Their second reading is scheduled for July 20th, and this is your second reading.
This is the matter that you brought before us earlier, and the city concurs with what we're voting on tonight. So you've heard the explanation. This is second reading. Will there be a public hearing at the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
There'll be a public hearing at the next meeting. What is your pleasure, council?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Chair.
Motion by Mr. Moats and a second by Mr. Lane. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. And that is unanimous on second reading. There will be a public hearing at the next meeting. We have new business. Consider a modification of policy 10.4, which is a procurement policy, change order request form. Anita Baylor, Risk Manager. Welcome.
Thank you.
Chairman Brown, fellow council members, it is my pleasure to stand before you as the Greenwood County Procurement Officer to address consideration of modification of policy 10.4 procurement policy and change order request form. As written, the procurement officer has the authority in the policy to approve all change orders and contract modifications in the minimal range as long as the cumulative total contract does not exceed this range and the total does not exceed the budget approved by County Council. I propose that we modify this section to read, the procurement officer shall have the authority to approve all change orders and contract modifications below the informal range, which is $10,000 to $50,000. As it stands now, the minimal range would be any purchases less than $1,000, and you don't need a purchase order anyway. So as long as the cumulative total contract does not exceed this range and the total does not exceed the budget approved by County Council. And as I stated, this modification has been proposed due to the fact that the minimum range, which are purchases under $1,000 does not require a purchase order. The modification will continue to require approval by the county manager for all change orders over $1,000. And it will just help give me a little more flexibility when it comes to the change orders, and I will not have to ask for a signature for every change order. I think it would move the process a lot,
Signature from whom?
the county manager.
So you would have the authority on anything between 10 and 50,
No, sir, anything under 10,000,
under 10.
but the change cannot be more than $1,000. And it cannot exceed your approved budget.
Okay. Mr. Manager, what's your,
I'm supportive of Ms. Chairman. I think she's given certain authorities in the policy, but they aren't practical. This makes the practical and the policy match each other better.
Ms. Anita, how often does that happen?
Quite often. And the way I was trained, if I could tell the truth, if it was under $1,000, then it would be signed off on anyway, which basically the way it's stated, that is just not appropriate. So we need a policy that reflects what we're actually doing.
any other questions by council? You said you could not exceed any amount above the amount we budgeted for that certain item anyway, could you?
Correct.
So,
But the issue is, a lot of times I get change orders, and it might be for $200 for a change order on a PO.
Library will be closing in 9 minutes.
But
Please
because
make sure
it's
all
over
materials have been checked
$1,000,
out at the circulation
I'm
desk.
not given authority.
Computers will automatically shut down in 4 minutes.
but prior to this, you could go to the manager and he could give you that authority, right?
Yes, sir. Prior to me coming in this position, if it was not over the budget, but if it was less than $1,000, it was approved, and that's not correct,
Okay.
without going to the county manager.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. What is your pleasure?
Move to approve as presented, Chair.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Mr. Lane, made the motion. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Childs. Any further questions, comments? We know what we're voting on. We're gonna give all this responsibility to Anita now. She's assuming a lot more authority, okay? All in favor? And the motion stands approved, Mr. Templeton. Our next item of business, thank you, Anita.
Thanks, Anita.
Consideration of the appointment of special tax district commissioners for the following subdivision: Quail Run, Jeannie Britt. She is being recommended as a reappointment from District 4, and that's for Quail Run. Any questions of the county treasurer? If not, do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Moses, second by Ms. Spencer. All in favor? Mrs. Britt is appointed. We have several ordinances that are going to be provided in first reading in title only. One is ordinance 2020-16, which amends the Greenwood County zoning ordinance so that if amended, one parcel of land, 31.95 acres, owned by Jeffrey LeGrune and Judy Carter, how you pronounce that, Phil? Carter. Located at 615 Old Apple Highway in Greenwood, changing the zoning classifications from R1 single family residential to R4 two family residential. That's first reading in title only. And I will ask, since we're not having our administrative meeting, maybe Phil, you can come and give us a brief description of what this is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request by Robert Haney, who is acting as applicant for the property owners. This is the property at the corner of Old Abbeville and Woodlawn Road, shown here, 31.95 acres. The property is currently zoned R1, single-family residential. Move forward to this slide, showing the R1 designation. There are a number of different zones surrounding this property, AG1, R1, R4, C2, in the general vicinity. However, the request is to rezone the property to R4 two-family residential in order to make the property more marketable to sell. And the property is currently for sale. I think it has been for at least 6 months. The Planning Commission looked at the request and recommended approval.
Bill, what are those R4s across the street from it?
Single-family residential homes.
Single family, but they're zoned R4.
Yes, sir.
How close are we to, show us where the property is that we just had the latest rezoning or request for rezoning?
The property is just about right here.
So this is further back toward, the bypass?
Yes, sir. The bypass is here.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. That is the cut-through road.
That's Bud Road.
That's good.
Correct. That's, the bypass is down in this direction.
What's the acreage in there, 31?
Nearly 32 acres.
How many units can they put in there?
It varies. The R4 allows for different densities for residential.
Library will be closing in 4 minutes. Please make sure all materials have been checked out at the circulation desk. And don't forget to pay for any copies.
In case anybody doesn't know what the library, we're gonna be closing in a few minutes.
The R4 for single family allows for 7.3 units per acre. If they decide to do patio homes, that's another option at 10 units per acre. And if they choose to do duplexes, those would be 11 units per acre. So it just varies depending on the type of proposed use for the site. And at this time, there is no proposed use. They're just trying to make it more marketable.
So they have no plan for the property, but they're just asking for it to be on.
Basically upzone the property. Yes, sir.
So we're being asked to rezone it without any knowledge of what may be put on that property and the design of the,
Yes, sir.
I mean, we don't have entrance, we don't have egress, we don't have anything on the property.
Correct. You would be improving a density, not a plan.
Okay.
That would still have to come before us. The plan would have.
No, sir.
No, it wouldn't.
It would just have to meet the zoning standards.
What kind of traffic are we looking at on Woodlawn Road in that intersection?
As far as increases based on this development, you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 7 units per, 6 to 7 daily traffic generation for each unit. So it just depends on what type of density they're looking at doing. If they were doing a patio home, it's going to generate more traffic than if it was single family.
And currently, is there a problem with traffic?
DOT says there is no issue with traffic there. There have not been any modifications to that intersection. If there was to be higher traffic generation in the area, then obviously they will take a look at it. And if it meets certain thresholds, then they will make modifications to that intersection.
They're not obligated to do that in any way.
Not in advance of any development.
Unless somebody can change my mind, I have a problem approving the zoning and not knowing the design of what's going in there. It seemed like to me if they were requesting a planned development district, then we would have a plan. We would approve that plan, and they could not change that plan unless they come back to council. Well, once we approve this, then as long as they meet your regulations, your requirements of R4, they can design it any way they want. They can put their access roads anywhere they want as long as they can get DOT to approve it. And the Planning Commission, our county council knows anything or has any say after this point.
If the property is going to be sold as individual lots, the Planning Commission would have a review, both a preliminary and a final review of those development plans. but council would not.
And it seems that after we went through the latest rezoning and what was approved out there, it almost sounds contradictory for us to approve this without knowing what's going there. It just seems like it's going to, the residents out there will have no avenue to protest to anyone if we rezone this property. They'll be left at.
Library is now closed.
To, say negative toward the developer, I'm just saying that no, they will have no voice once we approve this to R4, whatever the developer wants to put in, they can put in.
For our standards.
According to your standards, but they have no place to address their concerns.
They will at the second or at the public hearing, because this is just first reading.
Well, I understand, but still, all we're being asked to do is to rezone the property. We're not looking at a design.
Right.
We're just looking at rezoning the property. And for one council member, that bothers me. Especially when you look at the long tradition usage in that neighborhood.
And I've already heard from people who live in that area of their concerns about the increased potential for increased traffic. It would be a nightmare. And is there a zoning level lower than R4, like an R2 that would lessen the density of that acreage?
Yes, sir, you have R2 and R3. Both of those would be between the current zone of R1 and what they're requesting for R4.
I'd be more comfortable with an R2, frankly, given the feedback I've heard.
Council, any other questions or comments? We will have second reading and we will have a public hearing at the next meeting, and I'm sure we'll have some of the residents there, but I hope we all understand that we have no design in front of us. All we have is a request for a tract of land, 31 acres, to be rezoned to R4. And once we act on that, if we act in a positive manner, then all they have to do is comply with your regulations, and we know nothing from that point. And there is no way for anybody to address any concerns other than asking the developer to hear them, okay? Thank you, Phil. Don't we have one other one before you leave? This year is also. Ordinance 2020-17, which amends the Greenwood County zoning ordinance so that one parcel of land, 10.88 acres, owned by Edmund Stevens, located at 1327 Florida Avenue, changes from I-1 light industrial to R1 single family residential. Phil?
Thank you. This is a request by Briarwood Solar LLC. This should be familiar to some of you. This is the property in question. It's a little over 10 acres, 1327 Florida Avenue. Last year, the same entity, Briarwood Solar, requested that the Planning Commission rezone this property. It was residential R1, as shown in the surrounding areas. However, they were wanting to put in a solar farm. There was some concerns by the adjoining property owners. They worked one-on-one with many of the property owners out there. The entire property, as shown on this map, was rezoned to I-1. However, this L-shaped portion, the 10.88 acres on the front of Florida Avenue, they had no intentions of making this a part of the solar farm. So therefore, as a part of their agreement with the property owners, want to rezone that back to R1 single family residential.
Any questions by council?
Phil, so I remember this specifically, and I remember that the solar interest from the start told us that they didn't intend to occupy that with panels. So is this giving the neighbors a certainty that nothing else could be done with that land? Is that what this is all about?
Yes, the only thing that would be allowed if you were to rezone it to R1 would basically be a single-family home, a public use such as a fire station or EMS station type thing. But beyond that, no commercial, no industrial use.
Right, but who has ownership of that parcel now?
Mr. Edmund Stevens, he owns actually both pieces of property still.
And he's leasing to the solar interest, correct?
I believe so, yes. sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
This is the layout, they intend to
Right,
utilize them.
right, yeah, I recall that, thank you.
Okay. Did the community come to the planning meeting
There were two individuals that spoke at the public hearing.
and they kind of spoke for everybody?
Yes.
They were okay.
They were in favor of this.
Okay.
Will the remaining parcel where the solar farm is, because of the difference in the uses, will one of them become a flat lot? I mean, how will you access the I-1 part if you make the front part residential?
There is a remaining portion from this. You can see that the property's already been subdivided. So this portion is their entranceway into the site.
Okay,
Yeah, they talked about that, Chairman, in that last presentation.
all right. Any questions by council? This is first reading and title only, and there will be a public hearing at the next meeting. Our last item of business before we go to district reports is the item that Mr. Colonel spoke about, which is a discussion of ordinance 2902, which amends section 6-3-29 and 6-3-47. It was put on our agenda so that staff could get some direction from council. I think the questions asked tonight, as far as me, I would like for us to have maybe a work session where we can get the staff and anyone else to sit down with us and make sure we know exactly what we're voting on and the impact that this ordinance is going to have on, not only on Mr. Colonel's, but on everyone. I would bring this matter up at the same time. I have been approached by the Fire Advisory Committee, who has been working on ISO ratings throughout Greenwood County, and they have a recommendation that they would like to make the council in a formal setting, but prior to that, they would like to meet with 3 or less council members and discuss it before it comes to you in a formal meeting. So there's an opportunity for us to maybe have some meetings and take up the fire recommendation and also to take up this matter here, and maybe we can get to the point where we want to pass this or we don't want to pass it, or maybe we want to amend it or revise it. So that's my recommendation, and I would ask any comment by council.
Mr. Chairman, let me say, I totally agree. I feel like due to the COVID, this, has been pushed out. A lot of people who may have some interest have some concerns in coming to a public meeting. So I do think we need some more time. I have received several phone calls this week. I've received a lot of phone calls this week about various different things this week. It's been a busy week. I've earned my $100,000 a year. But anyway, it's been an interesting week. But I also, on this matter, and some of the other zoning, have had some conversation with some folks today that feel like us doing our 4 o'clock meeting versus 5:30 somewhat does not allow some people who would like to come and be involved in our meetings due to their jobs. They can't be here at 4 o'clock, and have some concerns there, and felt like that it may be an attempt to maybe not give them the opportunity to be here to pass some of these things without the public's input. And of course, I assured them that absolutely was not the truth, and that I would bring it before council that maybe if we're going to do one meeting, maybe that meeting does need to be at 5:30. Also, I as I look at it myself and colonels come up here tonight. I really think due to our present situation, and I don't know how we would do this, I look to the staff to maybe help us, that maybe somewhere there could be a link to our agenda to give a little bit of explanation. You know, when somebody sees on our agenda that we're going to discuss ordinance 2019-21, section 6329 and section 6, it tells them absolutely nothing. And most of our citizens don't have a clue on how to go and to find out what we're talking about. It would probably take quite a bit of research to do that. So I don't know if there's some way that we would be able to have a link or something, or just in the agenda, a brief description of what that means in layman's term, and of what we are discussing, so they can know whether or not they need to be involved in that. One thing that I have really pushed and with my time on council is transparency. And when I'm accused of us not being transparent, when I know the levels we have gone to be out in the open, very transparent, I take it serious. And again, I received more than one call this week to kind of express that you know, that maybe we weren't being as transparent as we should. So I take that very serious, because I know the lengths we've gone to be very transparent. So I would like council to consider that to some way. I know this can get in the weeds real deep, but some basic explanation as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then the folks can decide whether or not they think they need to be here and hear our conversations. But I totally agree. I would not be comfortable tonight to vote on passing this. At this time, I think it needs some more discussion, and anyone who wants to be involved, and anyone in effect, should have a right to voice their opinion. And that's what I want to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You've heard Mr. Allison. Any other comments? Are you recommending that we go back to the 4 o'clock Administrative and Finance Committee meeting and then having our regular meeting at 5:30?
I guess what I'm recommending, it could all be done in one meeting. But I think I'm recommending that if we're gonna have a public meeting, if it's not an administration and finance, but if we're gonna vote on the issues, we have been doing that at 5:30. And if we're going to, that's kind of the pattern we've set, and somehow or another now we've moved to 4. I don't know why we done that, or was it, I guess I'm asking. I'm just saying, is that a problem, going to 5:30? Does anyone have any issue or any reason why we should be at 4 versus 5:30? 5:30 always gives the folks that work to 5 o'clock the opportunity to come here. Now, if you work to 5 o'clock, or even 4 o'clock, you don't have the opportunity to come and voice your opinion. So I would.
If I may say something to second Mr. Allison, I work no.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
If I let you do that, then I've got to let everybody do it, and I tell you what, we'll make ourselves available to you to talk to us after, but I cannot allow that right now, just.
I'm in agreement with the
But
secretary.
please stay there and we'll listen to you, okay? Don't leave us, just stay there and we'll let you tell us what you think, but if I do that, then I'll lose control of the meeting, and I hope you understand, I'm not trying to shut you down. You've got something we probably need to hear, but we will listen to you at the appropriate time. Then unless anybody has a problem with it, then we will start at our next meeting and begin at 5:30. Okay? Anybody have a problem?
So we'll go back to 4.
No, we won't go back to 4.
5:30.
We'll start
Start
at
at 4, at 5:30.
5:30.
We might be here at midnight.
Might be here to midnight, and those people that wanna come and give their voice may have to do it at 7 o'clock, but
That's correct.
we'll be here at 5:30. I mean, I understand your position, and we wanna do what we can, so, the only reason we're not going back to 4 o'clock is because of the way we have to do the buildings now. We could not do this
Absolutely.
and have the 4 o'clock meeting.
Understand.
So, Mr. Templeton, you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, then, someone give me a motion on how to handle this, if you want to continue, to leave it on the table, and then set up meetings where, either we do it as a special council meeting and then invite, staff and others to come in and talk to us, or either we do it in subsets of council. We can meet together as long as there are no more than 3, council members, and we do not have a quorum. Is somebody give me a motion, that's how you wanna handle it?
So you're asking Chairman for 2 motions, correct? One on this and then one on the meeting time change?
Well, I'm just gonna listen to consensus and ask you about the 5:30. If you want a motion on that, that's fine, but right now I want to know what to do with this right here.
I make a motion that we, discuss it further
Leave it on the table.
and have the staff set up some meetings of the folks who is going to involve and get some understanding to the public what we're talking about.
Okay, so, and I have a motion second by Mr. Moats. Any further discussion? You ready to vote, all in favor? And it still remains on the table. Thank you, Rodney. Now, do you want to vote on the 5:30 change, or can we just assume that's what we'll do? We'll start at 5:30. And Mr. Manager, can you have anything to add?
Do we need to show it in the minutes?
I have several things to add, actually, Mr. Chairman. One, it's not on the agenda, so I don't think you can take a vote.
Oh, yeah, we can take a vote.
Do anything we want.
Well, okay. Secondly, I think I may have a proposal that we can work through. Maybe we continue to meet at 4, but immediately go into executive session and get that done and not start your meeting until 5:30. That may be a way of doing it.
That's a good point.
So that may be something to think about. You still accomplish the same goal.
Anybody have a problem with that proposal?
Yes.
You just do the executive session items before, and if we got through the executive session at 4:30, then we would wait until 5:30 to begin our last meeting. Let's try that next time. We can agree to that and see if we can answer some of the concerns that the public had by doing it that way. Okay, district reports, Ms. Childs.
I have a couple of items I'd like to share with you this afternoon. First of all, I attended a meeting down in McCormick today concerning a grant for the water line down in Troy on Denny Road and Robinson Road. The mayor was there and 2 council people were there. And they received a grant already with $36,000, $36,000. And the grant has already been approved. And right now, they're having to get 7 to 10 more people to sign on. And they're gonna work on that because they have to have it to McCormick within 10 to 15 days. Also, what they didn't realize was that we had to do a portion of the money to them along with McCormick. So Columbus gonna let Toby know that Toby will let us know what our share to pay for this water line. There were some other things asked, and I didn't take it upon myself, but I really wanted to. The mayor wanted to know if council would take on the responsibility to help pay for the cost of some of those lines we put in. I said no. I said, "But okay, but I'm just one person." But that's no, because if we do it for them, we got to do it for everybody else. I mean, so this is what I said to them. So that's where we are with that. And it's $1,000 for each person to tap on. Now remember, we did this 19 years ago, and the tap on was only like $200. These same people that got bad water now want to tap on, but now they got to pay $1,000. So those other folks paid, so these people have to pay as well. That's my opinion, one voice, one vote. Okay, so I'm finished with that, and we'll hear about that later on. Just want you all to know that as the Little River Healthcare Coordinator, our partnership with Carolina Health Group, and we will have our second COVID pre-testing on tomorrow over at the Brewer Recreation Center, starting at 9 a.m. until 4, and it is free. And our third one will be down in Promised Land on July 22nd. That's free also, the same time. And then on the 29th will be our last one. We'll have that at Marsh Chapel, and that will be free also. In addition to that, what we tacked on to that was voter registration and the census. So the census people come, their staff will come and help people do their census while they're there. So that's where we are with that. And then to let you all know that there will be a unity march on Saturday, starting at 9 o'clock. They will line up down at South Main Baptist Church, and everyone is invited to come and be a part of this unity march. And it's sponsored by Greenwood Ministers, and I'm excited about that, and I plan to be at that meeting. We also ask you to wear your mask, and we're gonna do social distancing. So you're gonna be marched, put in the line for social distancing. So please bring your mask with you, and if not, we'll have some masks that will be given to you. And that ends my report.
Mr. Allison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, I'd like to mention that the farmer's market is open for business. Some good news tonight, they're having a phenomenal year. Their first few weeks of operation have been a great success. A lot of people, I don't know if COVID makes people want to eat vegetables or not, but apparently this year is going to be a record year. I think some of the folks told me they saw you out a few times, Mr. Brown, that you've been out and encouraged other members of council to go out and see what's going on out there. Our local farmers who are buying and purchasing, are buying produce, and also some of our local farmers actually selling their produce. So it's a great tradition in our town. I would like to see us keep going, and again, they're having a great year. Also, I would like to mention that I will be out of town on Saturday, that I 100% support the march. And I think it's a great thing that these churches are coming together, united to address some of the issues that are plaguing our land. And I am in 100% support. However, I will be out of town on Saturday and will not be able to attend. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That ends my report.
Ms. Spencer?
I would like to say, let's keep the Robinson family in our prayers. Although he's not in my district, I'm chairing the seat that he had on the Gleams board. Let's keep them in prayer. Part of my announcement, Ms. Child already made that, in the Brewer area having the COVID testing on tomorrow. And I like the fact that what you said, people with COVID seem like they're going to vegetables more. I can attest to that, me being having the virus, I want to thank all those that took the time to pray for me and to send text message and everything to me while I was out. I truly appreciate it. It was an experience, but I thank God for his goodness.
Amen.
Well, since she just told y'all about that, I was reluctant to say anything, but we are so glad to have her back. And she was in the hospital for about 8 days, and we were very worried about her. And the good Lord brought her back to us. And if anybody wants to know how this virus affects you, there's a lot of people, and I've got some good friends that thinks it's a hoax.
No,
I don't think Ms. Spencer will tell you it's
not
a hoax.
It's not a hoax.
You really want to know how it affects an individual, and she's a lot younger than I am, and she can give you first-hand experience. But we're glad that she's back, and she was missing a couple of meetings with us, but thank the Lord she's back. Mr. Moats?
Yes, well, a couple of things I'd like to say tonight. First, implore the folks in Greenwood to start or continue wearing your mask.
Yes.
The science is clear, the medical community has been clear. I don't want us to get into a debate about an ordinance requiring it and mandating it, but enough good sense among all the good people in this town, you ought to have a mask on. As the doctor in Greenville said to everybody in no uncertain terms, wear your damn mask. It helps. And that's the thing, one of the things I want to say tonight, is if you got a mask, wear it, especially when you're in public. The other thing is a personal word, and I too, Mr. Allison, have had an active phone calling week. A lot of things have been said. A lot of things have been preached to me about. In fact, oftentimes in life, we find ourselves in the unfortunate position of having made an outrageous comment and later, after thoughtful consideration, regret having made the comment. And tonight I find myself in that inevitable and unpleasant situation. My comments in the Index Journal last Sunday concerning those who served in the Confederate Army were inflammatory, they were irresponsible, and they were an unnecessary, provocative, and hurtful comment. For that breach of decorum and civil discourse, I do sincerely apologize. There's no excuse I can cling to. There is no explanation that will satisfy. I deeply regret the comment that was carelessly made. And I ask those who were offended to extend unmerited grace to someone who should have known better. That is my comment.
Mr. Templeton.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll tell you what, I wish I had reported that for all the times I misstepped. That could come in handy. Good job. Chairman, we lost a great friend last night in the death of King Dixon in Lawrence County. As many of you know, Mr. Dixon was former athletic director at the University of South Carolina, but more importantly than that, was a career Marine officer. And truly, I think, one of the finest men I've ever known. So he's certainly going to be missed. Our condolences to go out to all the folks in Lawrence County, which was his home. Mr. Steve Coleman, back there in the back. Stand up, Steve. Is you back there in the back? That is you, isn't it, Steve? I don't have my glasses on. So we didn't get a chance to recognize Steve earlier. We talked about the COVID testing that went on at the Multicultural Center in my district. I think, Steve, if I'm not mistaken, are you the chairperson now of that organization? But more importantly, personally to me, I want to take just a moment of privilege to recognize Steve. Steve advises and counsels me on a lot of issues. He's very grounded, and if you all know Steve, he doesn't mind speaking his mind. He'll kind of tell you like it is. But seriously, Steve, I want to thank you for all the times that you take just a moment to sometimes talk me off the ledge on some things, and bring me back down to a better place. You really do, and I appreciate it. I know that my prayer tonight, for those of you who weren't here, was a bit lengthy, but it was a unity prayer. And I do believe that as we all go forward tonight, I hope that we can go forward with it being foremost in our minds that we need to work together as people of Greenwood County to not find ourselves subjected to, quite frankly, some of the foolishness that's going on around the nation. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for always taking the opportunity to bring us your thoughts and concerns. Thank you very much. That ends my report, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Chairman has no report. Mr. Manager.
Nothing to report.
Madam Attorney.
Nothing to report.
Clerk to Council.
No report.
We need to go into executive session, and I would like the manager or the attorney to give us the reasons for which we need to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, we need to enter into executive session to discuss the following 6 items. 2 are personnel matters, 1 in the county manager's office and 1 in the public works department. 2 are contractual matters, 1 involving the North Greenwood Industrial Park and 1 involving Foundry Road Park. 1 is a legal opinion regarding a potential mandatory mask ordinance, and 1 is an economic development project known as Project Cloud.
You've heard the reasons given by the county manager that we need to go into executive session to discuss these matters. Before we do, and I take the vote, sometimes people get up and leave quickly. Let me say to each and every one of you, thank you for being here. Some of you have spoken to me over the phone this week and emailed me and text messaged me about matters that were on the agenda tonight. And I think all of us, even with Mr. Moats asking for forgiveness, I just want to say thank you to how people in Greenwood County conduct themselves and how they can agree to disagree with sometimes our decisions and things about county business. But you folks are great people. You're very wise, you're very knowledgeable, and we need to hear from you. And we appreciate you taking your time and energy to talk to us and tell us what you think. We're the better off for that. So thank you for coming, and continue to call us, continue to phone us, continue to message us, and let us know what you thought. Council, you've heard the reasons. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Ms. Childs.
Second.
Second by, I heard Ms. Spencer, I believe, first. Second by Ms. Spencer. Any discussion? All in favor? And we will adjourn to executive session. We've got to set up the room, so that'll take about 10 minutes. But ma'am, who wanted to talk to us, please come and tell us what you need to say to us.